So anyway, but we did indeed get lucky and moved in. And my mom, who was very, very witty, told us kids, you know, your dad is not going to win the governorship, and kids are going to make fun. They're going to be mean in school and make fun. So you just have to handle it, and it's okay. And so the next day, when the win happened, and it was really a shock across New Jersey, my brother Timmy said, "What do we do now in school?" And she said, "Well, just hold your head up high and smile a lot." I don't know. So that's one story. When we, my mother used to tell a story about. She was in a store in Princeton, and she overheard two snooty ladies talking about, oh, this governor, this Irish governor is going to come in with his brood of children, and she was disparaging, and my mother was in the same area, shop, and she took issue with it, but anyway, I think there was a lot of concern with such a big family coming into Morven. I guess Governor Minor had been a bachelor when he moved in and later married, but no children. When I am one of 10, I have 8 brothers and a sister. And to give you background, my mother, Betty Hughes, had been married to a captain in the Air Force. And she had 2 toddlers and was pregnant with her 3rd child when his plane went down in World War II and he was killed. And meanwhile, my father, Richard Hughes, had been married for 18 years to his first wife, Miriam, and they had 4 children. The youngest, Mary, my only sister, was a year when her mother suddenly died of a heart attack. So that when 2 years later, when friends kind of put together my folks and said, we've got this widow and widower, and let's see what we can do about getting them together. On Halloween night, they were taking their kids out trick-or-treating and fell in love. And 6 months later, my mother went to New York City, and she talked to a priest at St. Patrick's Cathedral and said, I'm crazy in love with this judge in New Jersey, and I have 3 little ones, and he has 4 children, and he wants to marry me, and I don't know how the 2 of us can handle it. And the priest said, it won't be the 2 of you, there will be 3, because our Lord will be with you every step of the way. Still gives me chills when I say it. And that was what she needed to hear, apparently, because she came home and said, okay, let's do this thing. And so when they married, they had 7 between them. And my uncle, Joe's brother, Father Joe Hughes, married them in 1954, I think. And they decided to go for broke and have 3 more. And I'm one of those 3. First came Brian Hughes, our county executive, the politician in the family, then me, and then 5 years later came Thomas Moore Hughes, the youngest in the family. He was born here in Morven. And so it was a great match. And so you had these 2 families blended, and then it was yours, mine, and ours, and it was pretty fantastic. When we moved before we moved into Morven, my mom said, I'm going to have the boys in the 3rd floor. She converted the attic into a dorm-like setting with bunk beds and a washer dryer, and she wanted to have a fire escape for their safety. And I guess the Historical Society said, absolutely not, you can't do that. You're going to mess with the history of the house, and maybe your excess children could live in the slave quarters. And with that, Betty Hughes said, I don't have any excess children. And if we don't get a fire escape to the back of the house, then we're not moving in. And so we got a fire escape. And it was later used, well, we can hold up on that. You can imagine. So anyway, that was the fire escape, which I think was absolutely necessary. She also demanded that around the pool, which was wonderful, it was a round pool in the back, that a wrought iron fence be put around. My youngest brother, Tommy, is legally blind, and they added the fencing, which was a beautiful addition to the property, I think, and necessary, and we spent lots of time in that pool. It was wonderful. It was a very, very happy place to live. Kind of odd now to see it as a museum, but I have such amazing memories of growing up here and the endless parties. It's just like a little girl's dream. My brothers would not agree. You know, my mother's motto was get dressed or get lost. And so a lot of them chose to hit the road. So now, and when we would come to the A&P, which was then at the Princeton Shopping Center to shop, the tellers would just, you know, the cashiers would just cringe, I think, because of the amount of food and carts, and it was way before Sam's Club, and it was a trial. Let's see now. JFK came to Trenton to campaign for my dad in 1961, and my dad always thought that his coming turned the tide on the election, and he was wonderful. Now I don't have memories of it because I was pretty little, but my brother Pat remembers playing arm wrestling with him, with JFK. And my brother John remembers him wincing at certain points during his visit because of his back crisis. But he was he did a great thing for my dad, and for the state was very proud and very excited to have him here. And it was just 2 years before we lost him. My brother John remembers, he's one of the oldest, he's a former judge, remembers coming home the night of the assassination and being on a train and just an eerie silence, and then coming home here to Morven and having 50 state police surrounding the property. And that was the case with all governors in the country because they didn't know if it was going to hit state leaders and all governors. I mean, we were still in the what happened here mode, and John used to talk about how eerie it was to come in that night with so much police presence, and well, it was a sad time for everybody. Let's see, now there's another funny story about Brother Tim, we lost him a few years ago, but Tim was a character, and he one time was looking down from the 3rd floor and fell. Fell in the middle of a big cocktail party. I don't know how old he was, maybe 12, I just don't know. But he was looking down, and he truly did fall down the flights on his head, and was out for a few minutes, and we had a doctor at the party, and oddly, Tim was okay. Just amazing, you know, to meet the party in that way. And so he also was known for, he was kind of a Dennis the Menace type, and he got locked, when he was kind of young, he got locked into my grandmother who lived with us. Helen Sullivan came to make sure we settled in 62, and she stayed, you know, throughout the 8 years, and was incredible help to my mom. Anyway, Tim got locked into the trunk of her car. And the police came, and Tim said, "I'm alive, I can see the light, it's okay." So they got him out. That's good. Then there was a story I heard lately that, again, Brother John was walking by the front door, and there was no security. So he looked out the screen door, and there was a nice looking gentleman all dressed up in a dinner coat, and John said, "Oh, my parents are in the back in the library. You must be one of the guests, and I'll take you to them." And the man sat and had drinks with Mom and Dad and some of the other guests, and then he finally said, "Where am I? Isn't this the Nassau Inn?" And my mom said, "No, actually, I'm Betty Hughes, and this is Governor Hughes, and I'm glad you can enjoy us. Just go down there." So now, and then once a week we would have open house, which my brothers hated, of course, and I thought was great. And the Girl Scouts would come, and school kids would come, and they'd want us to go upstairs and see the Beatles posters and, what are the governor's kids like. And it was fun. You just have people walking all over the grounds, and I thought it was a gift, the more the merrier. I had an a party for my 8th birthday. It was probably in this very spot, and on the tennis courts we would have potato sack races and three-legged races, just fun. I mean, it was just filled with what you would imagine a big old family would experience. Okay, one of the greatest memories was of the cook who was here, Dorothy Fagan. She was this wonderful, big, mammy-type woman who was just full of love, and she was great, and she was a brilliant cook. And then the maid, the housekeeper, was Ravina. So it was Dorothy and Ravina, and Dorothy was a big, fun, loving woman, and Ravina was neat as a pin. So they were kind of like Oscar and Felix, the two of them. And every summer we would go to the Island Beach House, made famous by Chris Christie a few years ago. And it was which infuriated me. I mean, don't you dare tarnish my memory. But anyway, we would go every summer, and it was great. And Dorothy, the cook, would always come. And one time, a lost fisherman who had some drinks came by the house, midnight, 1 a.m., and knocking on the door. And Dorothy greeted him with a butcher knife and said, "Keep walking, mister." And she was really very protective. And my dad had to say, "Settle down, Dorothy, it's all right. He needs some coffee." But Dorothy was incredibly protective of the family, and a great woman. And I was lucky enough to reconnect with her later in life. I'm a singer, and I was singing in a cabaret in Princeton at the Hun School, and it was covered in the Trenton Times. And Dorothy, years later, said, "I used to work for Governor Hughes," and she was in an adult care place in Trenton, and they didn't believe her. And she said, no, Richard Hughes, I was the cook, and I know this girl, honey, who's in this picture." And so I got a call from the adult care place, and they said, "Do you know Dorothy Fagans, and did she indeed work for your family?" I said she absolutely did, and I'm thrilled that she's alive. And so I went to her place with my brother Tom, who she was also very, very close to, and we reconnected. And the look on her face from the wheelchair when she said, "My people," and she just cried, and we cried, and then Tom and I, Tom also sings, would go to that place every year and sing, and Dorothy would tell stories about the Morven years, and it was just fate. It was just meant to be. It was a wonderful woman who died about a year later, but to have had that connection again was just incredible. Let's see. Have you heard enough?
Speaking of singing.
At the Island Beach the Island Beach House was great. And Dad would have to be flown by helicopter to Trenton to do his job. And when the state trooper would bring him back by helicopter, he'd say, "Honey, Brian, anybody want to ride? Come up." And I remember being, 9 or 10 and thinking, yeah, no fear. And so we would go on these rides over the amusement park at Seaside Heights and just look down, and it was wonderful. I mean, it was great. I don't know if you could do that nowadays, but it was just wonderful. Then, I guess in the middle of in 1966, my mom got it in her head that she wanted to drive the family across country, and everybody. And my father said, "Absolutely not. I'm the governor. I cannot do that. New Jersey will fall into the sea. No." And so she got her way, let's just say. And so there was a governor's convention in LA, and so we drove in 2 station wagons en masse, through the country. Grand Tetons, Yellowstone Park, it was wonderful. And one of the first nights, my mom, who had issues with weight and did not want to have her picture taken or had a big thing made of our first motel where we stopped. And she told one of my brothers, "Go in and let them know we're here, but I want to go in the back and I don't want any press." And so of course there's a big awning, "Welcome, Governor." And so, but she slid in with, paper over her face. And it was a great trip. And she memorialized the trip in her memo from Morven. That was her weekly column of the antics that went on in this house with this big old family. And I had all of those. And I remember her just typing away, always, every week it was in the paper. And it got the state to really know a regular old family and not just, politics. So that was an incredible trip across country, and the state did survive. The Newark riots happened when Dad was governor. 26 people were killed, and it was terrible. And my father got a call from the mayor of Newark at 2 in the morning, a Don's day, I think, and said, "All hell is breaking. We got trouble. They're rioting, and it's bad." And my dad said, "Well, I'm coming." And of course, Betty Hughes said, No, you're not. You'll get killed." And he, did go. He got a plainclothes officer and a state trooper and some backup, and went in the middle of the night. And I guess the riots lasted for 5 days, but he went to meet some of the black leaders and sat in kitchens and just tried to bring some peace about, and it finally worked. And the National Guard left, and the state trooper presence left, and it settled. And then Plainfield, and rioting happened all over the state. But that was a scary time. He heard from LBJ, who he was very close to, and he also heard from Martin Luther King, who said, "Do you want me to come?" And Dad thought, no, I'm gonna do this and he knew King. And he said, I'm gonna handle this locally, we're in good shape, and I would be afraid for you to come at this, with all this unrest. And, you know, these memories are, they're important, and the danger that he faced, he was very brave, was really pretty intense, but he had excellent people around him, and he had a real personality that you trusted, and you could sit down and talk to him. He was a very special man, and I was very lucky. We were all very lucky. Now, that, I'm getting there. There was a White House incident that where my mother and several, I don't know if they were governors' wives or who the crew was, but Lady Bird Johnson was leading a luncheon when Johnson was in office. And the talk a lot was about Vietnam, and Eartha Kitt, the personality, got really into, she was very verbally abusive to Johnson, who stepped in just for a minute, and only for a minute, because he just left the room. But she then got very abusive with Lady Bird, who was an incredible woman. And Eartha Kitt just was kind of wagging her finger very close to Lady Bird's and talking about drugs and Vietnam and just kind of going off. And Lady Bird, who was close to my mother, was flustered. And Mom stood up in her way, and she spoke of having 8 sons, and if anyone was called to Vietnam, they wouldn't be happy, but they would go. And she spoke up, defended Mrs. Johnson, and things settled down after that. But it was LBJ was very grateful to my mom for kind of quieting down that explosive exchange. So there was that, and the last White House story is one of my favorites. And one year, when Nixon was in office, all the governors were invited for something, and we were at the White House, and Nixon came to the stage and said that his daughter, Tricia, I think, had kind of strong-armed him because he was going to have the Washington, D.C. Symphony perform for us. And she said, nobody wants a symphony. You know, we have all these governors and their kids, and let's have something much more current. And so we were able to hear, I don't know if people remember, The Fifth Dimension. Oh my gosh. It was unbelievable. I mean, they were huge at that point. And so Nixon, in his way, said, well, they're standing behind the partition, and they're going to come out and entertain you, and I hope you like them. And you hear Marilyn McHugh's voice, when the moon, and we all knew, oh my gosh, we're in the White House, and the Fifth Dimension is in-house. This is great. And so they came out and started singing Aquarius, and one of them said, would anybody like to come up and dance? And my brother Mike Murphy, who's a lobbyist in Trenton and a real character, he jumped out of that chair so fast, and he danced, and it was just wonderful. So I always knew, I mean, I guess I would have been 10, or I don't know what age, but I always knew through the years that I was very lucky. I never took any of it for granted, and it was just, it was really the opportunity of a lifetime, and there you go.
And you know, because of all the stories and little things I've heard today, I also heard from your new agent that's sitting next to you that you already mentioned you're a singer, and so because we are here all gathered, what do you say you lead us in a holiday song, a rendition of
White Christmas. One of the greatest movies and songs of all time. I usually sing the Irish Blessing at family weddings, but I'll sing White Christmas. And please join, because does anybody hear? I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops listen and children listen to hear sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, with every Christmas card I write. May your days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
I just want to say a couple of words. And I really think that my mother really appreciated Honey's mother, Mrs. Hughes, because I think she realized that if the Hugheses didn't destroy the house, the Cahills might not either. And so that was very reassuring for my mother to move into a home that really was the home of a large family. And home was a very important place in our family. We had 8 children, 6 girls and 2 boys. And so moving into a new place that was part of the state was a big change. So that was very reassuring. And I personally want to thank Mrs. Hughes for the fire escape. That was really instrumental in high school. I won't tell too many stories, but just to say that Teresa and I originally were on the 2nd floor at Morven, and somehow we got the idea of, oh right, my grandparents moved in, which was very convenient because they had to take our bedroom, so we got to move up to the 3rd floor, which was the dorm for the Hughes boys. And Motel Modern, we had the escape right in our room. It actually had a door, so it was very easy to prop open when we went out at night. And we walked down this fire escape, went right past the kitchen window, and where the state police were housed. And so they, as Honey mentioned, really the people in the house became part of our family. We had people that cooked, and Regina was still there. We had state troopers there 24/7, but they really were part of our family, and so wonderful to our family and our sister Tricia and all of us. And they actually chose to reach for something at the time we were walking past the window, so somehow they never saw us sneaking out that fire escape. But we were a very popular place for Saturday sleepovers in high school.
Thank you all for having us. Thank you so much, Deborah and Jill, for having us, because it's really, it was our home, but it was really, we recognize it now, even more so, it's a privilege to be in this house. And thank you. I just think it's so interesting, all of you not even from Princeton. How did you get involved in Morven? I'm glad that the society is maintaining the house and keeping it alive.
Now,
So Debbie, I have a question for you.
Uh-oh.
Because I heard that, and this may have been rumor, that after the Hughes family and the Cahill family inhabited Morven, that the Historical Society said, enough. We can't let this beautiful historical home be overrun fun with children, so we're taking it back.
I don't think so.
No,
Because Burn after Cahill.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
the birds.
The Burns were here.
Did the Burns live here? I thought they went to Drumthwack.
No, they were here through 1982.
Oh, were they?
So-
I didn't realize that.
Rumor.
So rumor.
While you're on the subject of the Benny Hugheses and the many Cahills in this house, shortly after my father was elected, there was a cartoon in the Newark Star Ledger, and it showed Morven, the cartoon, and Governor and Mrs. Hughes, and these 10 children all walking out with their suitcases, and Governor and Mrs. Cahill and their 8 children all walking up the walk, and the caption said something like, "I thought we were done with kids in this house." But honey, that was a wonderful presentation you gave, and we are not going to even try to compete with that. But when you talk about memories of Morven, I never lived in Morven, as I said previously, but spent the holidays there, and then weekends we would come up and, there would be parties that we would go to and such. But the hallway in Morven, as you walked in the front door, there was a very long hallway, the dining room on the left, and a sitting room, living room on the right, and a family room at the back. And my daughter, who was 2 when my father was elected, but by the time she was 3 or 4, had learned to do cartwheels. So her goal was to be able to cartwheel from the front door all the way down to the family room. And I think they counted it at one time, and I think she could do 15 cartwheels right in a row. And then I had my 3rd child while my father was governor. And there was a very large picture of Richard Stockton hanging in the hallway. And underneath the picture, there were, I think there were artificial flowers in a bed of some sort, but there were rocks in the bed also, holding up these artificial flowers. And my baby, when he was able to crawl around and hold on to things, was fascinated by these rocks. So we would come in, Colleen would cartwheel down the hall, Kevin would take all the rocks out of the bed, the flower beds there, and throw them, of course, all under the hallway. So they had a very good time at Morven. My oldest son was 4 when my father was elected, and he was absolutely fascinated by the state troopers. He had no interest in spending time with the family. The minute we hit Morven, he was in the office where the state troopers hung out. And they were so good to the kids. I mean, they just, it never seemed to annoy them to have the children around. And Dennis would walk around with some of the state troopers' hat on the whole time. And later in life, he became a state trooper. So they had quite an influence on him. That was the influence of Morven on my children anyway. But it was really a fun place to be. It was like going to a party every weekend. And when we would come up in the summertime, as Honey was saying, there was this wonderful pool in the back and tennis courts. And it was just, it was a lot of fun to be here. Because I didn't live here, I really didn't have the experience that Teresa and Eileen did of, the staff in the house and the day-to-day living here. But it was a great place for a party. And we used to come up on New Year's Eve, and we would bring our friends. And my children would sleep. My mother and dad had a suite of rooms. You would walk up the stairway, and there was a bedroom up there with a sitting room. And the kids would sleep in sleeping bags in the sitting room. And when they would bring their friends when we would bring friends, they'd bring their children too. And those kids slept there too. So it was really, a fun, multi-generation house. Fun for everybody. Mary, I know, has a story from her birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
William has it done. Only that, because I didn't live here, but I came on every holiday because I was single, so
I centered my holidays around
was born on Thanksgiving Day in 1943, but it happened to be Thanksgiving Day on my birthday, during the years that Dad was governor. And we always had a party, but unfortunately, the riots at Rahway Prison in Upper New Jersey took place that day or night. So Dad, as was Governor Hughes, was up there at the prison trying to keep everything calm. And fortunately, it did result in no loss of life. I heard, although I never asked my dad about it, that the psychologist who ministered to the prisoners or helped them came on the scene and wanted to go in to talk to the prisoners, and the police didn't want him to go in. And my father said, yes, let him go in. And I think that probably made a difference to keeping the inmates who were disturbed, feeling that they were being heard. So that was the only time that I have to say my family life was interrupted by Dad's job as governor, because he managed to do a good job of both. And I saw a lot of my father before the twins were born, of course. No, but I went to college in Washington, D.C., and at that time, my dad was a congressman representing South Jersey in the Congress for 11 years. So I got to do a lot of special things like Holly talked about with my father, and world leaders and events in Washington, like attend John Kennedy's funeral. And a lot of historic things that I had access to because my mother was home raising the children, and I was in college at the time and able to go to the State of the Union and many historic things that took place in the 60s. I was graduated from college in 65, so anyway, we had a wonderful life, and Dad and Mom was amazing because she was a quiet person and a personal kind of person, and because she was caring for Tricia for so many years, she did not have a lot of public events at the house. And she felt that she did have some parties here, but it wasn't as open to the public as it was during Governor Hughes' days, I would say, because my mother was occupied with Tricia and felt, but she would get out and do things with the various societies and invite her to come. Anyway, Mother deserves a lot of credit, and I have to say, Elizabeth Martinez is my mother. They forgot to put Cahill after Martinez. Or maybe I forgot, because I gave them this picture. But Elizabeth Martinez Cahill was hanging the stockings with Teresa. But Mrs. Martinez, her mother and father, did live here at Morven as well, as we've already said. So I'll pass on the mic to Regina, who can tell her adventures.
Reading her dates up to Morven, I have pictures of the parties where we had dates.
Oh, really? So I, like the older sisters, did not live here. I was a junior in college when Dad was elected. And as the girl said, we actually didn't move to Morven until almost, 9 months later. And so then that took me to my senior year. I have a couple memories. When people ask, what was it like, I felt, and the girls were concurring, that both Mom and Dad were always very humble and understated about the position that Dad held. And so, in so many ways, I think we all felt like our lives were like they always were, right? I mean, in the summer, we went down to our little beach house in Long Beach Island. We did not use the governor's beach house, except on occasion for a party. But the family lived, 3 months at the beach in this little house we had in Grand Beach. It had 6 bedrooms. 2 of them you had to walk through
rooms to get to the other, including mom and dad's. You had to walk through a child's room to get to mom and dad's. There was one bathroom for the 8 kids, and we always took showers in the outdoor showers. And so life just sort of went on. And again, I didn't live here, so I don't know. But I do remember when Dad came to my college graduation, you know, he was, again, he always was pretty understated about things. And so there were state troopers with him, but you would never have known who they were because they were always out of uniform. Mostly when Dad traveled. I think he didn't like to sort of draw attention. And so that's my memory that they, and then I was abroad for a little bit, and by the time I came back, I was off on my own. So I don't have day-to-day memories here, but it certainly was a happy house. And I would concur with Mary that Tricia's experience really shaped so much of life at Morven for our family. Because she, after the accident, she was in a coma for 2 months. And then she spent months at the University of Pennsylvania in the hospital. And then when she was finally released and came to Morven, she was flown, if I'm right on this, Eileen and Teresa, every day by helicopter to New York. Driven to New York every day.
Rehabilitation in New York.
She had rehabilitation in the city with Dr. Rusk, who was a very famous, and that probably went on for a year. So I think a lot of moms' experience at Morven was really dominated by trying to help Tricia get back on her feet.
And, you know, Tricia went to Princeton High School for her junior and senior year, and we were talking about the people that she met at Princeton High School and what wonderful, wonderful young people who were 16 years old and really embraced Tricia and invited her to events, and they came to parties that she had, and really one friend worked with her every week and taught her how to swim because she had some physical disabilities as a result of her head injury. And so it was really a tremendous support system that she came into in junior year of high school, and I think it really was a wonderful experience.
Just referencing what Regina or Eileen said about Island Beach State Park and the fact that they really didn't use it. This was, of course, the governor's summer home, and when he took family down there, these two, who were teenagers at the time, wanted no parts of this place. I mean, here's this beautiful summer home sitting out on the beach all by itself, in the middle of a park, all by itself, no people around, no boys around, no friends around. So they wanted no parts of this place, and Mother and Dad accommodated that, and they spent the summer at Long Beach Island. I, on the other hand, had no problem being at Long Beach, Island Beach with no people around. And we used to take our children down there a lot of the weekends, and we would invite friends down. And it was really a great house for a young family because it was right on the beach. The beach was right there. They had a beautiful patio. There were, I guess, 5 bedrooms in the house. And so we always had friends down, and we'd have cookouts out on the patio and go fishing on the beach, and it was a great summer home, but unfortunately not enjoyed by the Cahill family, except for me.
No, I have to speak up on that. I was living in Washington, D.C. We had made many friends because I've lived there now for 50 years. And one of our greatest memories, I still have friends who will talk about it, 50 years ago, we all gathered, and there must have been 30 of us, from my group of friends in Washington, D.C., who went down to Island Beach. And we stayed not only at the Ocean House, but at the Bay House as well, because there was another home on the bay. And so with this number of people, we were able to accommodate everybody.
at the beach, and it was all, you know, ourselves, and it was a great time. And I shouldn't say this because I hope it's not illegal, but well, it probably is now. But my friends were there and stayed overnight, and the next morning, one of my friends from the beach house woke up and said, "The beer fairy came during the night." And it was because my father had somehow arranged to get a keg of beer delivered to the back porch where we were staying. Really, Father, I had? But I was older. I was old enough to drink at that time, definitely. Anyway, it was a great benefit.
Well, I want to thank you all so much. Now that we segued to the beach from Morven, we're going to segue. Thank you all so much. And the last of our trivia moments for today. Again, big round of applause. The last of our trivia moments take us back to Morven, where you see these centerpieces. There's a centerpiece on every table, and there is a little piece of wrapping paper, gold wrapping paper, kind of hidden in there. And on that piece of gold wrapping paper is a question related to the governor's era at Morven. So the first person, or whoever you decide at your table, gets the question right, gets to take the centerpiece home. So that's it. This is also the trivia for today. And there's gold wrapping paper, and if you open up the wrapping paper, there's a question, and if you don't, I can help you, but I'm afraid I'm not going to do it. Well, no, it doesn't matter.
governor, girls.
Okay.